Good evening. It has been quite the journey, but we have finally reached our destination, the 9th and final episode of the Gilded Age Season 1. Let the tournament begin.
My dear, are you sure this is wise?
I'm quite sure it is not. Mr. Raikes feels it's our only way out of a logjam, and I agree.
So what is his plan?
We're meeting in the park later to finalize details, but I know it's next Friday.
We've got trouble, my friends, right here in River City. Beginning of the episode, Marian is talking about the elopement. They have a date set. They're leaving. 22 minutes in, Aurora Fane spots Tom whispering and laughing with a young lady at the opera. A young lady who is not Marian. Listen, I've been through trauma this past weekend with a period drama. I am very fragile right now, but I've been preparing for this for weeks. I haven't loved Tom as much as in the earlier episodes. I don't think this will break me. It's gonna be sad, but after the hotel thing, I haven't seen him in the same way, so I think I'm ready. But it's still really sad. Okay, here we go. I'm not full on crying, but
Yes, I'm just driving across the street.
Ada said goodbye to Marian and it got me. I didn't expect to be like this. Okay.
I assume we're not getting married today?
Marian.
Just tell me. Was it all pretend?
No. Of course not. I love you very much.
But as New York smiled on you, you came to see that there were others who could offer you so much more than I could.
The truth is...
I'll tell you what the truth is. The more you pushed for our elopement, the more you felt your desire for it slipping away.
I suppose I thought that if I could only make it happen, then things would come right. But I began to suspect that if we did marry, we would have no armor for the battle that lay ahead.
We'd have no money. You mean?
We know New York now, you and I. There's a life to be lived here, and a good life. But two penniless strangers from out of town could not hope to live it.
But Miss Bingham can make sure of that life for you. Well, why not? She won't suit the old crowd, but she'll do well enough with the new, and her fortune is more than ample for both of you.
I don't admire myself for it.
On that note, I'll say goodbye.
The boy is doing well. And we are to assume this boy is my son. Why else would your father have made inquiries? Did you know? I did not. I accepted what I was told when they brought you home. He stole my child. And all the time he was working and sitting down to dinner with us and living a lie. He wasn't in his right mind. Please don't make excuses for him. I'm not. I don't know what good can come of this. We won't find the boy and Arthur won't help us. Have you come over to my side? I've always been on your side. My baby is alive, Mama. My baby is alive, and I want it back.
We have a lot of notes to get through. Guys, this is our last time doing this for at least a year, maybe longer. Let's savor it, okay? Well, Starbucks? Right off the bat, we see Marian and Mrs. Chamberlain discussing Marian and Tom's elopement. It is happening in 1 week. Marian says they're leaving New York City and probably not going to come back permanently for a little bit. I don't know, she seems convinced that they're not going to live in the city. Mrs. Chamberlain, however, is not convinced that Tom's going to give up the city that easily. It just, right away, red flags everywhere. We briefly see Tom and Marian meeting in the park. They confirm their plans. He tells her that he's never loved her more than in that moment, and they kiss. So nothing terrible yet, but there's just red flags. There's just, yeah. Bertha is in full-on party mode, planning Gladys's debutante ball. She has been unsuccessful in inviting the Astors. I think she's tried a couple times, I'm not really sure, but the one time we see her, she actually goes over to the house and she's turned away by the butler. He tells her Mrs. Astor's too busy or something like that, and she's like, fine, whatever. And then, as she's about to leave, another woman visits and she's let into the house. At dinner, she tells the family that she is now uninviting Carrie because her mother has snubbed her, and she refuses to entertain the daughter of a woman who continues to snub her. The family tries to talk her out of it, but she is not backing down. She absolutely refuses. The funny thing is, she is determined to impress this woman because she is basically the core of society. Everyone listens to Mrs. Astor. If Mrs. Astor told people to accept the Russells, they would do it in a heartbeat. But at the same time, Bertha also doesn't want to be told what to do or be controlled by this woman. You know what I mean? Like, I think she wants to impress her to get into society, but once she's there, I have a feeling she wants to become what Mrs. Astor is. She would love that. Moving on, Peggy visits the Van Rhijn house to pick up her clothes. She and Marian discuss the elopement, and she agrees to take her bag over to Mrs. Chamberlain's house, and she agrees to be there so she can say goodbye and see Marian off. As Peggy is leaving, Ada notices that she's carrying Marian's suitcase. Ada's not stupid. It's obvious that she knows what's going on. She tells Peggy, you wouldn't let Marian do anything stupid, right? And Peggy says, you know, I would do my best. And Ada accepts that she's not blind, but she chooses in this moment not to make a fuss about what is going on. She later talks to Marian and tries to talk her out of her plans. Marian is determined. She basically just makes it seem like they just can't wait. I don't know, she uses the word can't. I mean, they could. She says, we just can't wait. And then she also says, me and Tom wanted to wait for Agnes's blessing. And Ada jumps in and says, yeah, but Tom didn't, did he? Kind of pointedly reminding her Tom is pushing for an elopement now. He's not very willing to wait if that's what Marian wants to do. Just red flags flying everywhere around this elopement. Carrie Astor is furious at her mother for snubbing Bertha and not considering how hard her daughters worked at dance practice for the ball, as well as Carrie's desire to be there with her friends. Absolutely furious. Later on, we see that Carrie is up in her room. She refuses to eat dinner with her mother. I think the sadness we see is genuine from Mrs. Astor. Actually, in this situation, I think the thing that moves Mrs. Astor into action is her daughter. So, obviously her daughter means a lot to her. The Russells' chef, Monsieur Baudin, we finally find out his secret. Did anyone see this coming? He is actually Josh Borden from Wichita, Kansas. At some point, he realized no one really wanted a chef from Kansas. It's just not cool. So he became a French chef, and all of a sudden, he was in demand. George Russell doesn't really care. Actually, I think he finds it kind of amusing. Bertha, on the other hand, is furious. She's like, we would be the laughing stock of the city if they found out our chef was from Kansas, not France. So she immediately wants to let him go. She's willing to wait until he has things settled, but she wants to let him go and find an actual French chef. The woman he was arguing with outside the house is actually his wife. They're still legally married, but they're not together. They're separated. She wants to reconcile, but it doesn't seem like it's very genuine because he's a very successful chef making money now. Very different circumstances. It's not outright said, but I think it's implied that she is reaching out and wanting to reconcile because his good fortune would improve her life. Hence the argument. Carrie visits the Russell house. When Bertha walks in, she asks her if she would forgive her mother if she apologized. Bertha says, of course, I would be delighted. And Carrie just totally falls into it, right? She falls into the trap. She's like, oh my goodness, your kindness is such a beacon of light after the treatment you've received. Oh my gosh, Bertha's good. Like, listen, Bertha's out here playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. Oh my goodness, her kindness is a beacon of light. Please. The woman is a cold snake. I know a lot of people actually really like the character of Bertha. I get it. You know, they admire her determination. She sees what she wants and she goes after it and she doesn't stop until she gets it. I get that, but like, this is not a good character, guys. She's not a nice woman. We briefly meet the new French chef that the Russells hired, and he is terrible. He's so incredibly rude to the staff. Everything for the ball is set, and Baudin was nice enough to leave his journal. The menu has already been approved by Bertha. There's notes in there, recipes, everything he needs. He takes it, kind of flips through it, and then just chucks it away. He's so rude. I don't like him. At a family dinner at the Van Rhijn house, Peggy comes up because she visited and Marian tells her aunts Peggy sends her love. Agnes is being Agnes, acting very cold about the whole thing. Oh yes, that was nice of her. Blah, blah, blah. You know, walls everywhere. And Oscar's like, Mom, just admit you miss her. And she was like, she was my secretary. She decided to leave. What more is there to say? And after a lot of prodding, finally she turns to her son and says, fine, I'm sad she's gone. Happy? Even though she's very Agnes about it, you can tell. Like, that was actual emotion coming out. She really is sad without Peggy. And I love that. Also, mother and son, I don't love Oscar as a character. There's nothing particularly wrong with him, but some of the things he's done with Turner and, you know, the whole thing with Gladys makes me uncomfortable. However, I love their mother-son banter. He's her only child, and now we know that she's lost children. So I think it's so precious to her that she even has a child at this point. They get under each other's skin like no one else, but he brings out the good humor in her. And I do really enjoy their mother-son banter and moments. Aurora Fane is seen at the opera. She kind of sees something in her peripheral vision, so she turns, and wouldn't you know, in the next box over, Tom Raikes is sitting next to a woman, and they're whispering and laughing. Now, I'm stupid. I didn't know who the woman was at first. I was just like, who is that? What is going on? I was very upset. Later on, it's confirmed that the young woman, is Cissie Bingham, who was at the Edison picnic that Bertha put together. So she was the flirtatious one in my eyes. Tom just seems like he was being nice. I didn't really think he came across as being overly touchy-feely. This time, it was even. And this is the red flag that made me go, okay, yeah. Marian's getting her heart broken in this episode, no doubt. Aurora's face broke my heart. You can just see. She's like, I don't want to break this news, but I'm going to have to tell her. Starbucks break. The morning of the elopement, we see Marian leaving the house very early, trying not to raise suspicions. Ada is downstairs. She sees her leaving. Ada knows what's going on, and Marian knows that she knows. This is where I was very caught off guard. They share a very emotional goodbye, and I have to say, the scene was so well acted. I teared up out of nowhere. Like, I was not expecting to cry in this episode. I would have never thought this moment in particular would have made me cry. At first, I wasn't even full on crying, and then the scene ended, and all of a sudden, a few tears fell. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was not expecting it at all. George and Larry actually have a very nice father-son moment in their carriage. Larry is talking about being an architect. He mentions that Marian was his biggest encourager when it came to telling his father what he wanted to do. He goes on and on about wanting to be a part of this growing city and make his mark. This is one of the most genuine George Russell moments. He's looking at his son with pride. I think he's finally accepting this is what his son wants to do. He's a Russell. He's gonna be good at it. No, he's gonna be great at it. He puts his hand on his leg, and I don't know. It was a really nice George Russell moment. I'll give him that. I'll give him this one. At the Scott house, one of the maids gives Mrs. Scott a letter that was found in her husband's laundry. He's away on some kind of trip to Chicago. I think it's a business trip. Mrs. Scott just sort of automatically opens the mail, not really thinking about it, and whatever is in the letter totally shocks her. Obviously, here in this moment, me talking to you, I know what happens, but you have to take my word for it. I had a theory in that moment because I was thinking, what kind of thing in her husband's mail would completely shock her? We've been seeing this storyline with Peggy having a child that she lost. My theory was that the child is still alive and the father knows where he is and he's keeping tabs on him, maybe even providing money, something like that. You'll find out later if my theory was correct. Aurora goes to the Van Rhijn house to talk to Marian about what she saw. She isn't there, so she talks to Ada, and the truth comes out. Ada obviously knows what's going on, and she immediately says, Aurora, she's at Mrs. Chamberlain's house. You have to go. And Aurora's like, wait, what, Mrs. Chamberlain? What's going on? And Ada's like, no time. You have to go and tell her now. You cannot wait. More on that later. George Russell goes to great lengths to make sure there are guests at his daughter's ball. Bertha is able to get a few guests to come thanks to Aurora, but because of Mrs. Astor not attending, there are still families that refuse to associate with the family. There is one influential family in particular that comes to George for some kind of loan. He tells this man if he wants his loan, he'll come to the ball. The man says, that's illegal, you can't do that. And George tells him, I have a list of reasons why I wouldn't go into business with you. If you don't come, that list will make its way around the city. And then he says, well, okay, I'll come, but my wife won't agree to come. And George says, if she wants food on the table, she'll come. He blackmailed people into attending his daughter's ball. Guys, these aren't good people. Finally, we see Bertha and Mrs. Astor go head to head, alone. Mrs. Astor tells her, on the day you came to my house, I had already promised that other friend who she saw go in that I would see her alone. Bertha says, that's a pretty BS excuse. You could have written a letter. You could have come to my house. There are a billion different ways she could have gone about it. She says, I'm here now. Would you consider letting my daughter come to the ball and dance? Bertha says, absolutely not. She will not let her back unless her mother is with her. And then she says, if Mrs. Astor comes, her friends have to come with her. She specifically names the Van Rhijn sisters. She doesn't say you invite them. She says you tell them to come. They have to be there. She is sick of being treated the way she's been treated by her neighbors. Not so much Ada, but Agnes, obviously. When they part ways, it seems like Mrs. Astor is not going to do any of that. We switch back over to the Marian situation. Aurora makes it in time to Mrs. Chamberlain's house. How did she make it there in time? Tom is hours late meeting them. Peggy's there, Mrs. Chamberlain is obviously there, Marian's there. They've just been waiting. Aurora tells Marian what she saw. Marian doesn't believe her. Aurora asks, okay, well, where is Tom? He's late. How late? And I forget who says it, Peggy or Mrs. Chamberlain, but they're like, he was due here hours ago. Marian says she's going to find him right now. Peggy goes with her. And then Aurora and Mrs. Chamberlain actually share a very nice moment. Aurora thanks her for being so nice to her niece. And she says, you know, I hate to ask this, but could you please keep this quiet? This could really ruin my niece's reputation. Mrs. Chamberlain is like, of course, I've dealt with this myself. You don't even have to ask. Back to Mrs. Astor. She meets with Mr. McAllister. Mr. McAllister wants to go to Gladys's ball. He is going to the ball. He encourages her to stop shutting them out. Referring to new money in general, he says, if we shut them out, they'll just make their own society. So there's no point you're fighting a losing battle. Obviously, she gives in and finally accepts that she has to attend this ball. The reason we know she's going is because we see the Van Rhijn sisters receive their invitation, which is more of a, if you're my real friends, you'll be there kind of thing. Agnes thinks it's a test of friendship. I don't think she realizes Bertha blackmailed Mrs. Astor to being there, essentially. But Agnes tells her sister she would rather go against Bertha than Mrs. Astor. She's more scared of Mrs. Astor, so they're going. Okay, Tom and Marian. People warned me. I didn't listen. The whole thing happened in the hotel. That's when I started listening. I haven't really liked him since. Here we are. When she walks into his office, he's writing a letter to her. And she immediately knows why. And he apologizes. He says, I do love you. I did want to marry you. She brings up Cissie Bingham. He doesn't deny any of it. Basically says they're not in a position financially to survive in New York society. They've both seen what it does, and they need more in their relationship to survive. And she says, money. Money is more important to you. So far, none of the theories are correct about her money. It seems like he was telling the truth. She really didn't have any money. If that is true, I think in the beginning he did genuinely like her. Actually, if they had stayed in Pennsylvania, this might have worked. But he moved to New York City to follow her, got a taste of society and being chummy with the wealthy. Marian basically says that same thing to his face. You got a taste of society, and money became more important than me, more important than us. As she's leaving, he says, can't we at least part friends? And she tells him, no, but we're not parting enemies either. I'll admit, I didn't cry. I wasn't really upset because it was so obvious a few weeks ago, of course, but from the beginning of the episode, nothing was telling me they were actually going to end up together. Ever since the hotel moment, the writing was on the wall for me. I haven't really liked him since, so this did not hurt me as much as if it would have happened when I was obsessed with him the first few episodes. Honestly, I was more angry than anything because it's just so dumb breaking up with her over money and status. What a shallow reason to break her heart. It just makes me dislike him even more. Marian. When she leaves, she rushes over to her house because she entrusted Larry Russell with letters for her aunts. They're goodbye letters. Obviously, Ada knows what's going on. Agnes does not, so her letter's the most important. She stops him just in time before delivering them. He says, I don't really know what's going on. She doesn't get into it right then and there. He then asks her if she's going to the ball, and she says, it's probably not a great idea, but I probably will end up going. He makes her promise him a dance. As I've said before, I was not really shipping them together, but he's always so sweet to her, and after what just happened with Tom, sure, I'll root for him. I don't know. We'll see. My theory was correct. Peggy's son is alive, and her father has been in contact with the woman who's taking care of him. I think this woman, Mrs. Wade, adopted him. It might even be the midwife. I'm not sure. But he has been in contact with her. He knows where they are. Peggy is so upset. And she tells her mother that her son is alive. He's out there. And she wants him back. This whole time she thought he was dead. If she had known, he would have never left her sight. But obviously she was very sick when she gave birth. I actually think her mother was not involved because she tells her, I only believed what I was told when he got back. So I think the father was the only one physically there when all this went down. This is the scene that made me cry the hardest in this episode. When Peggy says, Mom, he's my son. I want him back. Oh, my heart shattered. I was crying really hard. Her mother doesn't want Peggy to judge her father so harshly, but she also completely understands her feelings and she's willing to help. And that means a lot to Peggy, to have her mother on her side, willing to fight for her and what she wants. Loved it. We are now finally at Gladys's debutante ball, and the guests are being announced one by one. There are a lot of people there. One of the couples that's announced is Mr. and Mrs. McNeil. Remember her? Watson obviously works in the household. He is doing coats, things like that, coat check, whatever you want to call it. He hears that name, turns around, sees her, and quickly hides. So I'm definitely thinking this is a past romance, and it seems like he does not want her to know where he works. Nothing more on that. I'm assuming much more will come out in season 2. We shall have to wait and see. The new French chef, Charron, is drunk. He was just hired last minute. They had to replace Baudin, even though he was already prepared for the ball. Bertha refused to keep him. This guy's drunk. He's hired right before this huge event. He's drunk and he can't do anything. We see Church tell them, take him upstairs. He needs to sleep this off. And he quickly scribbles a note to be delivered. No more details are revealed in that moment, but I was thinking, I bet he's writing to Baudin to come back because he already knows the menu. He can help them in a pinch. Who else are they going to ask for help? I mean, there's no one else more prepared than him. The Van Rhijn sisters and Marian are the next guests that we see arrive, and it's obviously a huge shock to a lot of people. Aurora is shocked. Oscar is shocked. Him and his mother share another moment of banter. Love it. They're finally there. Agnes Van Rhijn is in Bertha Russell's home. Wow. What a moment. During the quadrille, Mrs. Astor and Bertha have a brief conversation. Mrs. Astor tells her, you know, after all of this is done, I could still destroy you. And Bertha says, I know, but you won't. Mrs. Astor's like, why not? Because we're too much alike. Bertha then tells her, I could be a very good friend to you if you would let me. And Mrs. Astor looks like she's in thought about that. Deep thought. Interesting. Can you imagine if Mrs. Astor and Bertha became best friends? Besties. Like, no one would stand a chance with those two. After the quadrille is done, Oscar insists that Gladys dance with him. She wants to change out of her costume. He says, no, come on, you have to dance with me. And, woo, girl power. Gladys says, I want to change out of my costume. Oscar, I'm out in society now. I am done with people telling me what to do. At that point, Oscar has to relent. He's like, okay, hands off. Go do what you want to do. It's very late into the ball, and I'm thinking, thankfully, Tom isn't going to be there. I was wrong. There are late arrivals. Tom is there with Cissie Bingham. Like, could this be any worse for Marian? I mean, good Lord. He immediately walks over, and God bless Ada and Aurora. Technically, they're polite to him. They don't make a scene, but they also make it crystal clear how they feel about this man. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think Ada says one stinking word to him. She gives him the silent treatment, and then when they walk away to leave them to talk, Ada kind of gives him the cold shoulder. Like, I love Aunt Ada. She's the real MVP. So's Aurora. Oh my goodness. They walk away and Tom tells Marian, I'm so sorry. I just assumed your aunts wouldn't let you come. If I had known you were going to be here, I would have never attended the ball. I would have never come with Mrs. Bingham. He says, Marian, I meant it when I said I love you. And Marian walks away and says, sometimes love isn't enough. He broke up with her because they couldn't make it in society without money and status. Like, how stupid. That tells us, the viewers, he didn't actually love her. If he loved her, they would make it. You just survive. If you love someone, not having enough money is not an obstacle. And I mean that in the sense of, in reality, you want to have a good foundation, right? You know, a good foundation for a home, food, utilities, bills, like all these things. What I'm saying is that he wants money. He wants wealth. He wants to be somebody. And those things are not required in a marriage. If you love someone, those things don't matter and they shouldn't matter. He chose that over Marian. And I say good riddance. Absolutely good riddance. She doesn't need him. We don't need him. Moving on. Oscar does end up dancing with Gladys. In fact, when she comes back from changing out of her costume, he is her first dance partner. Everyone sees them, you know, everyone's looking. The Russells seem okay with it for now. I'm sure we'll see more in the future. Agnes looks on curiously, doesn't say anything, doesn't cause any kind of a scene, but she's definitely observing. Not sure if she approves. That'll be interesting. If he wants to marry a Russell, he not only needs to be concerned about Gladys's parents, he needs to be concerned about his own mother. Like, I think he'll do whatever he wants to do, regardless of what she says, but his mother is somebody in society, so he really should care what she thinks. Later, we see him with his friend, John, and he is pretty darn confident that he can secure a match with Gladys. Pretty cocky about it. The ball is over and done with, and it was a huge success. Everybody who was anybody showed up. It just makes everything, all the drama seem so pointless. When you see everybody together at the ball having fun, old money and new money, the labels don't even matter. They're not even relevant. It just makes the drama between these adults look so petty and childish. Like, why are you guys fighting? When you're in a room together, eating, drinking, dancing, being merry, everyone looks the same. Like, but we love the drama. We do. Mr. Scott returns home from Chicago and finds his wife and daughter packing to leave. They reveal that they know his secret and they are leaving to find Peggy's son. He insists that he did it to free both his daughter and her son from a life of shame. He's just so stubborn and angry. He refuses to help Peggy in any way. He doesn't give his blessing on this little mission of theirs. It's sad because he's angry, Peggy's angry, her mother's angry. I really hope the dad comes around. I think it's just a matter of pride. He wants the best for his daughter, and the idea of her having this son, it's not out of wedlock, it's not that kind of shame, but it's the fact that she had a son with somebody who's a nobody. I don't know. It really just is pride. He's gonna have to deal with that personally. I hope he comes around. Her mother's support means everything to Peggy. I think her father's support would really put this dark history in their family to rest. Not dark history, but dark moment to rest. Like, just the source of contention, I guess. I'm wishing all of them the best in season 2. Marian is walked home from the ball in the early morning hours by Larry Russell, and it is revealed that she actually confided in him and told him everything about Tom Raikes. I have to give him credit. He's not flirting with her, doing anything like to win her, you know. It's nothing like that. He's being a really good listener, a really good friend, not judging anything she's saying, not judging anything she did. I give him that. He's being a good friend, which is already more than Tom Raikes did. So maybe I like Larry more than I thought. But we'll see. I'm still not shipping them really hard. But I'll admit, he's being very sweet. I can't ignore that. Baudin saved the day at the ball, and George overrules Bertha to hire him. This part is so hilarious because obviously now he's talking to them in his real accent. And when Bertha hears him speak for the first time, she's horrified. The look on her face cracked me up. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have a chef from Kansas. Everyone's gonna laugh at us. This is just the worst thing. And then she's like, do we have to say you're from Kansas? Can't we say, like, the Midwest or something like that? You know, like, it'll make it sound a little better. I really don't think it matters because even though he's not French, he's still an amazing chef. That doesn't change his food. Also, maybe she'll start a trend of American chefs. You never know. Oh my goodness. Probably the funniest moment in the entire episode. Like, I can't forget her horrified face at his American accent. So flippin' funny. Poor Marian. She is feeling numb and hurt, and God bless Aunt Ada. She is so sweet, and she tells her, you do what you need to do to heal. Things will get better from here. There's so much more of the city to explore. Basically, life is your oyster. And she tells her, if you need to stay in bed all day, you do that. We see Marian lay down and, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to her. She's just so hurt. At this point, I'm not rooting for Tom at all. Marian deserves her own happy ending, and I don't mean she needs to get together with someone in season 2. I just want her to be able to move on and realize there are men out there that will treat her better and put her above money. We hear the Gilded Age theme as Bannister, in front of the Van Rhijn house, gives a respectful bow to Church in front of the Russell house. That is how season 1 concludes. It's a lovely moment, despite some of the questionable special effects in the background. We're just gonna ignore that because, as I said in episode 1, the special effects are not the centerpiece of this show. So I'm just going to give them a little grace in that department. The only note I want to add is no Turner, which is very interesting. I'm very curious. Is she gone for good, or is she going to be back in season 2 to cause more trouble? Because she knows things. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. That is a wrap on the Gilded Age Season 1. I hope you've enjoyed these weekly discussion videos. Thank you so much to everyone who faithfully tuned in every single week. I really appreciate the views, the likes, the comments, the discussions. Don't you worry. As soon as Season 2 is back, I will be back. I'm ready for another season of drama. I'm so excited. Hopefully it doesn't take more than a year. Fingers crossed. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that red button down below to subscribe and become a member of my YouTube family. Also, click the bell to turn on your notifications. Click the link down below to become a patron and financially support future content. There are 10 tiers to choose from, something for every budget. My comment section is always open, and video suggestions from you are always welcome. I will see you in my next video. Bye!